Hello, friends. I am David Heron with TechSparks.com. And um, last week, my representative, Representative Ro Khanna, uh, had a town hall meeting nearby, so I went. And among the many excellent questions was this question about election security in the coming elections this year, given the interference and manipulation of the previous presidential election in 2016. So I thought what he had to say was very interesting and would be appropriate for TechnoSanity channel and TechSparks.com. So without any further ado, let's hear what he had to say, and then I will have some more to say at the end of the video.
We have Veronica from San Jose with a question about election security.
Good evening, Congressman. Thank you for being consistently available to your constituents and also for acknowledging Black History Month and Tabia, the theater ensemble, and all the others that were recognized this evening. I just want to ask specifically about election security. I'm in Congresswoman Lofgren's district, and she and Congresswoman Eshoo did a town hall yesterday about election security. There's been news cycles about Russian interference, and I just want to know your position on how we can protect our March 3rd primary and also the 2020 election so we don't have a repeat of 2016.
I'm deeply concerned. I'm concerned. I think that the Russians, as in all the intelligence suggests, are already trying to interfere. They're going to interfere with disinformation campaigns. The McConnell has refused to do anything in the Senate in terms of any legislation of accountability. I believe the intelligence officers of this country ought to come before the House of Representatives and tell the country what the threats are and help citizens figure out what they need to be able to look out for so we aren't taken advantage of. I mean, if the elected officials aren't going to do anything to protect our democracy, at least they can warn the public about what's going on. They don't have to give sensitive classified information, but they can talk about what type of disinformation threats we may see and what the public can do to avoid that. And the tech companies, frankly, have to do much better. I mean, they cannot allow misinformation on their platforms. They can't have information. I mean, last election there were ads on these platforms saying misleading voters about the day of an election, misleading people about where their polling place was. You know, I got to be blunt. I met with some senior person at Facebook. They started giving me all of this rigmarole about the First Amendment. I said, you know, we also have the 14th Amendment and 15th Amendment in this country. 14th Amendment talks about equal citizenship. And when you have speech that undermines equal citizenship, that's not constitutional. Right. When you have speech that undermines the right to vote, for which John Lewis, when the Congress was beaten, then you have some obligation to the country. Don't just hide behind free speech. Don't hide behind speech that is actually misleading and suppressing the vote. And so I'm going to continue to push the tech companies to do what they can do so that there is not misinformation. I'm going to continue to push for hearings in Congress so that the American people can be informed. And I think just given Black History Month, it's important to reflect on how hard the struggle was for the right to vote in this country. No community, and I say this as an Indian American, no community has faced more persecution, more struggle, more oppression than the African American community in this country. That's just a fact. And the civil rights movement and the struggle opened the doors for many other minority groups. My parents would not have been allowed in this country if it weren't for the 1965 Immigration Reform Act that opened the doors for immigration from non-European countries. And so when you are having a system of systematic disenfranchisement in 2016, let's just be clear what happened. And more than the Russian interference, there were polling places that were systematically closed in African American jurisdictions that went from.
Okay, that was a very nice question or answer on his part, I believe. So I'll say one thing to help understand the questioner, namely, she was part of a group that had been called on stage earlier in the evening because it is also Black History Month. Representative Khanna recognized a number of African American leaders in the community, including the person who asked the question, which is why she said the things she said at the very beginning. In any case, the question is extremely important because we know that there is continued interference that in the U.S. election cycle, and that it appears from the reports I've seen that that the Russians, in particular, are repeating the interference that they did 4 years ago, and that's a huge concern. And especially since President Trump is doing nothing to stop the interference, and in particular, he almost seems to be welcoming it. And the efforts in Congress to pass some legislation or something have been stonewalled by Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate. And it's so much that he's earned the nickname Moscow Mitch. So, okay, those are problems. So, what I wrote down, misinformation. Okay, so Representative Khanna talked about the level of misinformation that's going on. And, we see lies being told to us. Certain news outlets are basically lying completely all the time. And many of the politicians are simply lying, especially if they have an R after their name. But it's beyond that. One of the issues he mentioned, and this is why I'm bringing it to the TechSparks audience, is that the advertising on social media networks is extremely important nowadays, and the advertising that is going on the social media networks is not being fact checked, and they're specifically allowing things to be published as advertising that are blatantly false. And Facebook, in particular, is claiming, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. So just because it's so enraging, because they're allowing their advertising platform to be used to spread lies. Now, there was an ad I found about a year ago on Facebook. It was saying something about, oh, Sweden is about to exit the Eurozone, and it's a historic moment, and your children need to know about it, or something of that nature. The salient point being, a claim that Sweden is exiting the Eurozone. Well, the thing is, Sweden has never been part of the Eurozone. So there's nothing Sweden would do to exit the Eurozone because it was never part of it. In other words, that was a blatant lie. And it was advertising being run on Facebook, and it looked like, in my investigation, to be a Facebook page that was associated with Russians who was pushing that advertising. And so I put together the evidence and I was like, okay, think about it. Is there any obvious way on Facebook to report something? Or if you find a Google advertisement, for instance, is there an obvious way to report that advertisement to somebody who would then review it and say, oh, that's false, and then stop the advertisement from running? Is there? Okay, I looked around and I eventually found a way on Facebook to report such a thing. So I went through the process of reporting that advertisement to Facebook. And then I got back a response from Facebook a while later, a day or two later, and their answer was that, oh, it didn't violate any of their policies. It's a blatantly false ad. How could it not have violated policies? And they didn't pull the ad. Okay? That's what's going on. And, the simple explanation is Facebook is too addicted on getting the money from the advertising to want to enforce any policies that would be reasonable. Some are saying that Facebook wants to help with manipulating the election. But who knows? I don't know. But the main thing that's provable is Facebook has a motive of not stopping advertising because they're getting paid. The bottom line is that the elections need to be open and fair and available to everybody. And the election process needs to be based in truth rather than in lies. This affects the tech companies in the way that I just described and Representative Khanna described. So I hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching.